Good morning, South Africa. Good morning, world. As promised in our last talk, I actually want to start with some good news concerning South Africa. Too much negative news is circulating around this about our country around the world. And it's unfortunate that bad news sells. So this morning we're going to go slightly contra because we're going to talk about some good news things that are happening in South Africa. I think the most pertinent is all those South Africans now living abroad that had to give up their citizenship after 6th of May 1995. It is now official that your citizenship has been restored. So, welcome back, guys. About 1 million of you are living overseas now. So, now you have dual citizenship. Worthwhile to hang on to, because you'd never know when your children want to return. One of those good news stories is a guy from a spiritual background who actually left the country. They went off to Australia where their children were born. Then they moved to America where the children were brought up. Their son has now officially returned to South Africa, believing this is the best country to be in. So that's fantastic. So don't give up your citizenship. Reclaim it, because you never know when your children would want to come back. And obviously you must allow them. Around about the year 2000, 2001, we actually went to a thing called Ukasi in London. There were many people. By the way, the UK still attracts the most South Africans to go and live there. And I interviewed a few of the people that were there at that time, and I said to them, so how's it going? Has your children settled down and all that type of stuff? Most of the children had actually already returned to South Africa at that particular point in time. They had left the country that their parents believed they would have a better future. And the children believed they would have a better future in South Africa. I think that's wonderful news. And we believe that is true. So, here's some more good news. Things that are not shown, because we show our gross domestic product being at, I think they adjusted it the end of last year, the last quarter, to minus 0.6%. And this year, thus far, we're at 1%, and it might again be reduced to a nominal percentage, a zero or even a sub-zero. But here's the very good news. The future of our country, everybody agrees, will be built on small, medium enterprises. And the small, medium enterprise growth rate in South Africa is 2.5%. Agriculture, a massive 4%. That's great. So it means that your service industry, government, banks, large business, all those are actually causing the massive decline in that GDP growth rate, and brings it into a minus or a nominal figure, even a sub-zero figure. So we believe by rebuilding small, medium enterprises, continue boosting our agriculture, and then obviously reducing unemployment over time, all these things will contribute. The very, very good news, this is the most exciting news to me, is on the 15th of August, our president has declared a national dialogue. He remarks that everything in South Africa only changed through dialogue. We had the meeting of the Rubicon. And then we had, with the transition government in 1994, which was a bit unfortunate because it was called the transition government. And the old government, the old school, old guard, had to actually hand over the reins to the new government. Very, very unfortunate that the guys that were supposed to do the transition actually withdrew from government. But now we've gone through a cycle. 30 years later, we now have a government of national unity. Fantastic name, because it states what it's striving for. It's striving for national unity. We're still seeing that some of the opposition parties, the guys that actually now got into governmental type positions, are still trying to sow dissension and discord into the other parties. Most unfortunate. But all of that, we believe, will also change through this particular process with the national dialogue starting. And it's not going to be a once-off. It's the start of a process that will take over many moons. It will go through provincial meetings, all those type of things. And it'll ask for input from business, from religious leaders, social media leaders, and specifically to alleviate all the social problems that we have. But again, all just very good news. The one thing that is possibly the greatest concern in our country would be that one of unemployment. Now, unemployment is really in the formal sector. That's where it's measured by the number of taxpayers, etc., people that are banked. But in South Africa, we have an enormous informal employment. I look at it weekly. When they actually clear our dustbins, there's a very avid business of recycling. So, in fact, we become like leaders on recycling in South Africa, because these people informally, not officially employed, they are actually measured as unemployed, and they are now pushing around carts and recycling metals, papers, plastics. So it's also good for our country, it's good for the environment, as you would all agree. So that's really massive. And around our taxi areas, you see masses of ladies from the townships or whatever, preparing food on the side of the road and selling the food to those people. A myriad of them. So again, not registered in the... they will be registered as unemployed, yet they're vibrant. Not many people walking around the streets, totally unemployed. You would see the occasional person standing at street corners actually begging for money. But again, some of them are simply lazy. Some of them are just feeding a drug habit. And that's how they actually get the money for that. But even our formerly unemployed are actually standing at those traffic lights, robots, and they're actually peddling goods. So, yes, so it's absolutely fantastic. So we can see many of you being able to return to this country, and if you don't return to the country, please return some of the wealth that you took with you out of this country and return to the country. Start investing back into the businesses, the small, medium enterprises. They are growing by creating jobs, by establishing new small, medium enterprises. We bring them into the formal sector, and you can actually make an investment and receive a good return on that. And once the rand actually starts recovering, becoming a proper financial instrument in the world again, that will be growth upon your growth that you would obtain from these businesses. We will be starting an initiative during the month of September that will drive towards doing this, developing small medium enterprises, and then also to invest into communities as is required, looking after the orphan, looking after the fatherless, after the widows, and after the poor, because there are many such people that can't even afford a proper meal once a day. Maybe once in 40 hours they have a proper meal. Things I will approach you with later to actually help in that. Then obviously what we've got to continue doing is we've got to continue building this wall. So it's actually very interesting how the revelation goes concerning this wall. Each and every portion of the wall continues to be built on the one characteristic of God, which is the one of love. So we actually saw with the rebuilding of the first 7 levels of the wall, we actually saw that it was done as an opposite to, I'll remind you, Proverbs 6 verse 16, where it says, these are the 6 things I hate, 7 is an abomination. And it's actually interesting how those things were the inversion of the things that God hates. And obviously by meaning that the inversion would actually create what God loves and what He's passionate about. So just as a reminder, our 8th level was the one of prayer. Level number 9 becomes the one of my people perish because they have a lack of vision. So the next level becomes the one of vision, where we have to create a vision for the nation through God's plans, which would be the next level beyond that, is the plans. Now please bear in mind that each one of these has a biblical reference. So they're not just good thoughts, they are biblically based. As we said, Proverbs 6 we just spoke on. The whole one about prayer is the one that we referred to from the very first meeting that we had, which is the one on those people that are called by my name, if they would humble themselves and they would pray and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear them, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land, which really becomes our base, because that's what we want to see, is a full restoration and full recovery. And then God came along and He said He will rebuild this country with spiritual walls that will surround the entire country. And those spiritual walls are the ones that we actually referred to at the beginning. We'll possibly talk on these again later, because I think we're now about a third of the way through on our 50-day course of the rebuilding. So yes, so layer 8 was then the one of prayer, the first 7 we just discussed, and that is according to then referenced by 2 Chronicles 7 verse 14 onward. The one of plan is a very well-known verse, and it comes from Jeremiah 29:11, where God actually says, I know the plans I have for you. And that is what He's saying to South Africa as well. I know the plans I have for you. And He says those plans are plans to prosper us, not plans to harm us. And it's also plans that will give us a hope and will give us a future. And we know that hope and that future both are very positive and really great. We are reserved in the southernmost point of Africa, far removed from many wars, many evils taking place in other parts of the world. However, we've got our challenges. We do have evil flourishing here, but all of that's being eradicated. Yet, everything about God for this country is that one of love, one of His major attributes. So when we look at the next levels of the wall that will be constructed, it is again coming from a motivation of love, but it also comes from a correction. Previously what we had is you would see these people getting married to one another, and they would adopt this verse, this Bible portion, and apply it to their wedding and becomes part of their vows and all that type of things. And that is the very well-known portion of 1 Corinthians 13 from verse 4. However, what people do is they apply it to eros, erotic love, and that's in fact not true. Those verses are particularly written for a love called agape love. That is love for other people. It's also the love that God applied when he sent Jesus Christ to die for us. So it's like a God-given love, but it's one where it's not about you, but it's about other people. So we're going to look, and there are 16 attributes of that love described in 1 Corinthians 13, starting from verse 4. So I'm not going to try and recall all 16 from memory. I'm not that good. I'm not that young anymore. So I'm just going to read them. Now remember, when you hear the word love, you know it's agape love. It's not erotic love. It's not phileo love. It's not storgus love. It's in fact agape love. It's the love that you extend towards other people. So that love is patient. It is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Remember one of the words we had? Humble. It does not dishonor others. So it actually honors others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil. So it delights in goodness. But it rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and love never fails. So when we look ahead at the national dialogue that's going to take place, we're going to have two sides of a table. And if we can convince each one of those, each side of that table to actually apply these conditions of love towards the people who are sitting on the opposite side of that table, we can only but have a good outcome. We've got national prayer groups praying for this weekly. Each Sunday night to Monday night, they would have a 24-hour continuous prayer situation, praying specifically on these sort of things, where God would look at the restoration of our land, He would look at the forgiveness, and they would actually pray that these things would occur. And we'll see the eradication of evil, of wickedness, and we'll see the restoration of all these types of love. But a love where the one side of the table will actually serve the other side of the table. Thank you very much, and we meet again soon. Actually, I lied about that. It wasn't all that soon, but hopefully we'll meet again soon when we explore the other matters. Because the most important one is still coming, is the dome that God is going to put across this country of ours. And I might say, it is a dome of kingdom and His will for this particular country. God bless you all. See you, maybe soon, maybe later. Bless you. Bye-bye.